Hey, how you guys doing? It's Smith from Brothers Comics. Welcome to our House of the Dragon recap show. As well, at least two-thirds of the people are hate watching this show as it goes through, going against the grain of everybody else in America, apparently, as it has 30 million people watching it every week. On the line tonight, it's Grand Maester Beavis. Say what's happening.
I am in the hate watching community, y'all.
Yes, for sure.
Y'all
And
know
also,
why I'm here. I'm
yeah,
just here so I don't get fined.
exactly. Also on the line is Lady Dragonstone, who is to fill in all the gaps from the books in relation to the community. Say what's happening. Or
Hello,
maybe she,
everyone.
there you go. All right. So we are gonna go through episodes 5 and 6 tonight in two separate podcasts, and then episode 7 is premiering momentarily. And then we'll catch up with episode 7 when we get a chance to get maybe the full crew together as we get into wrapping up this entire show in 10 episodes. So we are in the home stretch. I think we have gotten through the majority of our time jumps, but I do believe there's another time jump coming up in the episode tonight. Is that correct, Lady Dragonstone? You said the next chapter of this is pretty much about the battles of the kids.
Yeah, from when you start reading the book after kind of the birth of Joffrey, Rhaenyra's youngest son, it kind of just moves on to you just read more of the kids' names. You hear more of Jacaerys than you do Rhaenyra or Alicent.
All right. So there we go. So episode 5.
So that in and of itself is kind of upsetting because like, they're postured as the stars of the show, and then they're just a vehicle to introduce the real conflict.
Yeah, just to get to the other ones as well. Episode 5 is We Light the Way, y'all. We finally get a chance to meet Lady Rhea, Damon's wife. She's out on the hunt for deer, and she runs into her deer husband looking very much like Anakin Skywalker out on the trail there, all hooded up. She insults him in many ways, implying he has sex with sheep and other issues of his sexuality. He approaches the horse, and he doesn't do anything with the horse, but it recoils back. It falls on her. She insults his inability to finish, and then he kills her off camera with a rock. Lady Dragonstone, you said in the comic, in the book, it doesn't imply or say that he killed her, but definitely they took liberties here.
It did not say or technically imply that Rhea was murdered by Damon. It only just explicitly keeps saying how much he truly, truly despised that woman. Just truly hated her.
Yeah. I mean, she
didn't seem all that hateable to me.
Yeah, not to me either. And she came onto the scene just so you could kill her, which I hate. So, like, this, if you're gonna introduce a character, give him at least a story before you kill him.
But it's fine because there's not going to be violence toward women in this show.
Exactly. You're gonna come up with this very, very soon, especially episode 6. The Targaryens are on their way to the Stepstones to make this wedding proposal for Rhaenyra to Prince Minor. This is the weakest king I have ever seen on any show ever. Grand Maester Beavis. We've never gotten a version of him. It was like, wow, that dude's the king, and I can see why that happens. He's just sick all the time.
I mean, Tommen was king, right?
Yeah,
he liked cats.
He was a child.
And he was like more of an adult in the series. He liked cats in the book. That was pretty much his roles. But yeah, I mean, it's ironic for as much as this house is so central to everything that Viserys is.
Yeah.
And to some degree, like you see his obligation to family, his kind of desire to do right, his recognition of when things are wrong, but he's just so weak. Like he almost never takes a stand.
They swing it back to King's Landing, where Otto Hightower is leaving after he got shit canned at the hand of the king, and he's telling his daughter, you should have believed me, not Rhaenyra. She was lying to you. He's like, you better figure this out, because when the king dies, she's going to kill you and all of your kids. And he rides off into the sunset. At the Stepstone, Lord Corlys does not greet the king. That is a beheading incident. I was made to be told that when you do not greet the king like that, you're going to get your head chopped off. But doesn't happen. Highly disrespectful. Greeted by Lenore and Joffrey, and we'll have more about this Joffrey a little bit later on. And then in the garden back in King's Landing, like this is my issue, and this overall with this show and the other one too. Like they be introducing characters and not telling you who the hell they are. Like you be having to figure the shit out later on. So I don't like that. So it's Lord Lares? Is that his name? What's his name?
Larry Strong.
Larry Strong. Okay, so he's the other son of the hand, and he's in the garden, and he's cozied up to the queen. And he tells her the story about the Plan B tea that the Meister made for Rhaenyra, and this dude is definitely playing the Game of Thrones. uh, any thoughts on Lord Larry's Hightower?
I'm 100% with you about like this show's tendency to not give you like they're not telling you this, they're not giving you the seeds so that when things happen they make sense.
Right.
And is this the wedding? Yes, this is the wedding. There's another shining example of this later. But yeah, I frequently find myself at like having to go back and try and like put some of these things in perspective because the writing storytelling is not great. And this is another example of like, oh, okay, this person is significant now. Oh, this,
right.
There's like a host of like background characters, but no, this person that you've seen just as often is now significant. So
Yeah, you saw
let's hear
him in
that.
episode 2. He didn't talk, but he was standing there. So great. What's his name? Ian? Right. All right. So back at the Stepstorm, Corlys comes out, has a power play. After his little power play, but he does bend the knee, which I would assume prevents his head getting chopped off. He tells the king of Lady Lana's death, it's terrible. And the king makes the proposals to unite the families that they tried to do with his freaking 11-year-old daughter, however many years ago, which is gross.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna marry Rhaenyra off to Lord Lenore. I always get their names right. And Corlys is like, okay, but what about the succession plan? And what's up with them last names? Because and he's like, all right, so when they're born, they're Valerians. But when they become the rule, they'll be Targaryens. And they all agree about that. And there's one kind of problem.
Because it seemed like it was about to work out.
Yeah, there was one kind of sort of problem. Prince Lenore likes dudes. And I posted this to Twitter. It was like, this conversation has been held by many parents before. But he'll grow out of it. Maybe not. But yeah, his prince is like, we're putting our kids in danger by getting involved in this particular situation. But Corlys doesn't care, because he sees the long-term power for this. But here's my problem, brother, Grand Maester Beavis. Okay, this insisting on putting all these black folks in this thing, and we get to 170 years later, they all gone, like all gone. So where's the story? We talked about this in certain comic book situations. Like y'all are painting yourself into a corner here when you make a hero do a certain thing or present them in a certain way. You're painted yourself in a corner. So how are they going to get out of this corner? That all the Valerians are going to die? Every single one of them?
Yeah, I mean, these are not meaningful stories that provide representation that is useful in any way to anybody else.
Right.
This is very clearly a society and a progression that is white male driven. And you don't, even if you didn't have the advantage of the future story to lay that out explicitly, it's pretty painstakingly obvious here. So this is not to try. I would rather this show was, aggressively whatever it was without having to try and pretend to have some form of representation.
Yeah.
And I think it would be less perceived as pandering and less annoying and irritating and less frustrating if they didn't try to do this.
Hi, y'all. I'm Black. Hello. This has been my 51st year of being Black. Um, Black people watch this show, and at no point in time they're like, "Damn, I wish there was some Black people in it." Like, at no point in time did this happen. It didn't. It wasn't like, "Oh man, this would be a better show if there was Black folks in it." We understand what this fantasy, whatever vision is. Like, we understand that. You, we do. But like doing this now, like I said, okay, it's fine to tell that particular story. But again, people that have seen the original series are gonna be like, so what happened to the Black people? Because they was here 170 years ago. You're gonna have to put yourself in a situation where they're gonna have to kill all of them, and that's not gonna be a great visual either. So anyway, Rhaenyra is walking on the beach with Prince Lenore, and she tells him a story of ducks and geese and how she likes geese, and she knows this nigga like duck. And she's like, "Look, you can have all the duck you want. I don't really care. We'll just do what we have to do as a part of the marriage." And he's like, "Hey, okay." First open marriage in history, I guess. I don't know. And then Lenore.
I thought she would have liked the duck. I mean, that's like, isn't it? I thought he was the geese.
I don't know.
Do they both like ducks?
I think, yeah, I guess, yeah, if you think about it, maybe they both do like that. So yeah,
What's a geese? What are we missing out on?
And Prince Lenore meets with Joffrey, and he tells him, now this Joffrey is his lover, and he tells him, yeah, we can still do our thing. She don't care, with Joffrey, eventually to his own detriment. I was wondering why she has to feel that way. So then we get back on the boat, the Targaryen boat, and we get the villain origin story of Sir Criston.
Oh,
He professes his love to her after breaking all of his vows of knighthood and all of that stuff to get him some. And he's like, "Look, we just need to roll away together, girl. Leave all this stuff behind, leave all your riches. We can go have cinnamons and apples like that. Like that's or not cinnamons and oranges. Like those are two things that go together. Like this this can work out. Run away with me. Forget all your stuff." He's like, "Nah, I'm good."
I'm talking about geese and ducks, and y'all up here talking about cinnamon and apples.
He's like, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm straight." Now, Lady Dragonstone, in the book, is this presented this way that he, went this route and he professes his love to her and then it gets rejected?
absolutely not.
I was gonna say I've never read this, but I'm gonna guess no.
No, absolutely not. It's like that's so surprising to say it about like this book series and obviously this franchise. That is PG-13 compared to what it actually is. Like in the book, it's like she got forced to marry Laenor after like Alicent had planted, "Hey, what if Rhaenyra marries Aegon, my son, and we just combine and they don't have to have a civil war," which obviously gross. And then her dad was like, "No, we're gonna marry her to Laenor." And then after that, she just kind of like, I feel so disgusting even saying this out loud.
Okay.
And when she finds that out, she's just kind of like, "I don't want to." So she essentially just like goes and tries to have her virginity taken by Sir Criston Cole, and then the accounts vary either if it was Sir Criston Cole or Sir Harwin Strong, and either he did it and then got mad at himself and then decided to just go all Team Alicent, or he refused to do it. Rhaenyra got pissed off at him, and then that's when they just kind of started hating each other.
That's about what I expected.
Yeah. Well, you know what that sounds like? Some fantasy writing, man. Bullshit. To be fair. Yeah. And that's fine. Okay. Well, yeah. That sounds about right. All right. Bring me the leeches, Grand Maester Beavis. Now, the king is not doing well at all. You look at his arm, it is all messed up. We still don't know what this man has. Like,
I think in meta interviews, they've come out and they've essentially called it a leprosy of some form, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, one of the
is this his arm, his face? Yeah, he's not doing well.
No, he's not at all. And there's a moment where so the hand brings him, like, I would assume, milk of the poppy, And he definitely looks at it before he drinks it, like, shit could be poison. Um, and then he wants to, he tells this thing like, am I going to be remembered as a good king? Because he brought peace. There wasn't anything really that's going on in the realm or whatever. They don't write songs about the dudes that brought peace. And the king tries to, or the hand tries to assure him, like it's going to be, fine. You'll be remembered, in a positive way. And then I forgot it at the top of the show here. We get the dragons like flying across there as they're on the boats, headed out to the stepstones, and then we get more dragons, and to the festival of the wedding. Nothing happens good on weddings on this show, y'all. Just FYI. Were you having that feeling going in?
I think I saw some like not like red spoilers, but I saw enough headlines where, and plus I really don't care anymore. That I kind of got that like that hint.
Mm-hmm.
But like even if nobody had died, I can't imagine it would have gone well. So.
No, it's fine. And then we get the name called the Lannisters again. The queen is not at the feast. And then people just show up, and House Valerian, blah 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 blah, and these people show up. I told to Lady Dragonstone, it felt like that scene in Harry Potter, and I don't remember what episode of Harry Potter that was, where all the people show up for that goofy tournament.
That was for the Goblet of Fire, right?
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one. Ugh.
Gotta know
Anyway,
your enemy.
yeah, exactly. And as this is going on, the queen is still missing. And then after Valerian show up, if they got announced, then Damon shows up to silence. And he's not announced. He just goes and takes a seat at the king's table, and nobody says anything.
But I thought he was in good grace at that point, was he not?
No, he got banished from making out with his niece.
Yeah, but then he came back, and they're like, okay.
No, that was 10 years before. No, this is
no. This is
No?
episode 5. Wait, nuggets. This is the wedding episode where we still have the younger cast, and that was this is the episode after Damon made out with his niece, and then so the king got all mad at him. It was like, "Why are you making out with my daughter?" And then tried to send him away, but the dude just essentially unexiled himself and showed up.
Yeah.
All right.
That's just who he is.
How you gonna make a scene at this wedding? I'll show you how. Yeah. So as he's giving his king's speech about what's going on and uniting these kingdoms, Queen Alicent shows up and makes her way to the table. She's all dressed in green, and they do explain to us that is the war colors of House Hightower. And this is explained to us.
This is what I was talking about earlier. Like they had all in parts of 5 episodes up to this point to give us that information.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that like when she appears in her green dress and everybody reacts and we have no reason why, and it's only till later that they explain us why we should be reacting to that, that is bad writing.
Yeah, it's ham-handed for sure. Right. Yeah, there's no layers of that. It's just simple, paint by color writing. So yeah, King is definitely.
Like, what I will say is that this show makes so much more sense, and I can't really say if this is the same for the original. Maybe the Grand Maester can advise. It makes more sense if you've just read the book, and that's terrible to say, but it's kind of true because you have the information that fills in some of those gaps. Like, I know certain stuff. I'm just trying not to say it because I don't want to spoil anything. But it's like, if you read the book, you will not enjoy it. It just makes more sense chronologically, I guess. But most people aren't going to read a 700-page book. So.
It might be the same thing, but I think the TV show, there are things that when you watch, and particularly the early seasons, there are small sequences that resonate a lot more if you've read the book because you kind of get the significance. But I think in a lot of cases, it's not that you need to know those things or they are going to be more explicitly laid out to you before. I feel like the main story, the main show, the main Game of Thrones show is better about like giving you the background and that latent storytelling, but then also exhibiting the scene. Whereas I feel like this show just puts the storytelling in the scene and just puts it all out there at the same time. But I'm also like, I'm astounded to go back and watch particularly season 1, just how dense and subtle the storytelling is, and just the groundwork they lay for things that don't get paid off anywhere near there until later seasons. And that kind of subtlety in the storytelling is not at all present here. This is just like, oh, let me write some words on a hammer and then pound you over the head with it. So that's this show.
Right. All right. So, yeah, King definitely not happy her showing up late. They do this ridiculous dance routine that was pretty awful. It was, man, it was a step below the chicken dance. The queen leaves. She stops at her uncle's table, and they say, you know, we're ready to war whenever you're ready to war, because she's got a green dress on. Okay, thank you. And then Joffrey notices Sir Kristen being obsessed with Rhaenyra as she goes from doing her dancing and talking to people or whatever, and that's going to wind up being a fatal mistake for him that we'll come back to. Damon gets accused of killing his wife, but he says, you know, I have all rights to the Eyrie and expect his inheritance now that she's dead. Just kind of jump ahead there. That is really not clearly defined and finished off as a story when we get to episode 6. Like, he's like, okay, so that was his wife. They had no kids. Yeah, he should be the one that winds up inheriting and all that, but he doesn't. And I'm not sure as to why. Is that a book thing?
I don't really remember.
Okay.
Well, the reason they technically didn't have any kids is because he hated her and he called her ugly. And in true Damon Targaryen fashion, he called her like his bronze bitch, which is mentioned in the show. But like, they just did not get along. And like, it's mentioned in the show when she first comes in, it's like, have you finally come to like consummate our marriage? Like, he just refused to do it.
Yeah.
Shot clock's up, by the way.
I saw it.
I would say that so there are a number of, like, if I don't know the answer to the question you just asked, but it's portrayed as if there are any number of strong knights within the Vale, and it's a very difficult place to exert your military influence.
Okay.
And so I could see why there could be strong enough knights that would force an individual out of power, and that might be the point. Like the area is the unassailable tower that it like exists on the top of a mountain essentially. So I think that could play into it, that it's, even if you wanted to, bring your own allies into there, they could be resisted by any number of like local knights. And so, and even when it's just the crazy lady and her breastfeeding son,
in the moon
there
drop.
there are any number of knights who exert influence there, so that could be an element of it.
Okay.
I could see how that would be a difficult place to assert your power, and it would take a lot of resources to gain influence there that would not necessarily be useful to Damon to assert any broader influence amongst the rest of the kingdoms.
Yeah. Okay. Damon dances with
and also
Rhaenyra.
He's never really been shown as having an army.
Yes, he's
of
kind
any
of
sort. Like his
like a
power
sellsword.
derives from having a dragon and having a name.
Right.
So
yeah, and sellswords, like he's like hires people like that. He doesn't have like a following like that. Damon dances with Rhaenyra, and they speak, as the Grand Maester puts it, their little dragon language. Marry me, if that's your plan, and it's still gross, and they don't like being talking about it. And then Joffrey goes over and gets under Sir Kristen's skin, talking about, hey, we can still do our thing, she can still do her thing, but all of this, and it pisses him off, and he catches a beat down. And I would say this is very reminiscent of what happens now. If you see like on social media and stuff, or even at the school that Lady Dragonstone goes, nobody helps with fights. They just whip their cameras out and just watch. This is what happens in here. This man is getting the shit kicked out of him. Everybody's just like, oh, hey, look, a fight. And nobody helps this poor man, where he gets all his freaking teeth knocked out. And Joffrey doesn't go down like, hard or whatever. He does try to fight back, but yeah, it doesn't work. He gets killed. Prince Lenore is very upset. And then they just push the wedding up, because this was the start of the wedding week. It wasn't like the wedding day. They just pushed the wedding up until the end of the show. Kristen tries to kill himself because he's, broke his vows as a knight. but the queen stops him before he can. And then after the vows, the king drops, but he ain't dead. Episode 5. Bada bing, bada boom. What did I miss?
I mean, you recounted the story, but I'd also say, like, it's not, in as much as there's any number of uh, uh, gay relationships that have shaped this story, it's not in any way the norm. And so the fact that, Sir Joffrey Lonmouth, who would otherwise be hedged out of this whole thing, has a window open where he can continue his relationship with Laenor it feels like that should have been okay. And I don't know why it seems odd that he would have like then gone to try to assert influence over Kristen Cole, who probably pretty clearly didn't share that. It's not like they were friends or anything like that, but he was all like, oh yeah, no, now we're all in this together. It was just bizarre. And again, it's like overselling of like the representation they're hoping for versus the reality that's really presented in this story, which we're going to pretend is historical or whatever. And it becomes another instance of, yeah, no, this is not the modern story that you're hoping to appeal to. It's just another kind of awful edge of the story.
It's a forced heel turn. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, by the way, like he is bad. Like we're gonna show you how bad he is because he's gonna kill this dude over some words. Now he had gotten some sex and maybe he just forgot all his vows at that point. He was gonna kill this unarmed man essentially at this wedding. But yeah, it is just a forced heel turn. So yeah, it's a little ham-handed. I will say this, and Big Hutch just said this as well, and I think we might even said it in the group chat that this episode, though, by far of the 4 previous, is by far the best episode that it's had, and I will have a similar conversation to episode 6 when we get to that. But it, you're playing from underneath here. Like you're not having to come too far to get to be the better episode. So I thought this one was like of the 5, this is by far the best one. Lady Dragonstone, would you agree?
Well, controversy to the popular opinion to the other 2 people in the Zoom call, I actually slightly enjoy this show. So it's like, I did like this one though. It just, I don't know. It just kind of the main thing that stuck with me is just reiterating the fact that nothing good ever happens at weddings in Westeros. But I don't know. I enjoyed what it was setting up and all the Easter eggs that at least I could see as someone who's just read the book.
Yeah, and you're coming at it from a different point than we are, which is perfect. All right, y'all. Who won the week then?
Damon, because we forgot to cover his little flirtation with Lena.
Oh yeah, well, we'll come to it here in the next episode.
Mr. Matt Smith yet again won the week.
No, oh no.
Rhaenyra did not win.
No, she definitely ain't gonna win next week, by the way, either. Just FYI. It's awful. Just awful. I guess Alicent maybe could win the week. She's stepping out. She's stepping out on her own. She's getting herself and her family ready for war. Or Corlys wins the week because he winds up being able to gather the power and by uniting the 2 kingdoms. So, maybe Corlys wins the week. Brother Grand Maester Beavis.
Harlan Strong, because he lays the seeds of like his
what his
next
love
week
affair?
Victory.
His next week victory.
Would you?
I don't know. Like no one's likable and no one wins. That's the theme of this show.
Would you agree that this episode is better than the previous 4, or are they just all the same?
Honestly, so I heard you say that. I think I might have enjoyed the first episode the most just because I hadn't started hating it yet.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
That's fair. All right. So that wraps up.
I really don't like this show. I hate it quite a bit.
We're going to get you through episode 6 here momentarily. All right, y'all. So this wraps up episode 5. And then we'll come back with episode 6 shortly thereafter. I'm the producer of signing off for part 5. Lady Dragonstone sign off.
Later days, everyone.
Nice. Grand Maester sign off.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Understood. All right, we'll be back momentarily for episode 6, everybody. Peace.